From the Oklahoma newsroom, it's time for Thunder Thursday, our weekly look at Thunder basketball here in the newsroom. I'm Jenny Carlson with fellow columnist Barry Trammell and Thunder beat writer Eric Horn. Guys, the preseason, 'tis officially over. It is time to get ready for the regular season. Got a little break here before the Thunder tips off next week at Golden State. Eric, let's start with preseason takeaways. What's the top of your list, biggest preseason takeaway for you?
The Thunder still can't shoot. They didn't shoot very well this preseason. I mean, it's not really a surprise, but I like that some of the guys that did take shots took the right shots. You had a guy like Hamidou Diallo who showed some moxie for a 20-year-old. He wasn't out there chucking a bunch of long bombs and when the shots came to him, he took those shots, particularly in the last game against Milwaukee, but he wasn't taking a bunch of bad mid-range jump shots. He was attacking the glass, scoring inside. That's going to be a Thunder mission this year, to take more of the shots that they are good at taking as opposed to taking the shots that they aren't good at taking. They're not a very good three-point shooting team. This is a three-point league, but the Thunder needs to find more of those shots that they can make and make more of them, as well as the free throws. Jeremy Grant, another guy, not taking a ton of threes, but he's still getting to the rim very well. He's shown progress there in the past couple years. It's more about the Thunder, being efficient at the shots that they can make as opposed to taking a bunch of three-point shots.
Your excavation of Hamidou Diallo. Leave a little dirt on him. We got to get back to him here in a minute.
We're coming. It's coming. It might be what Barry talks about next.
Well, Barry, for you, what's your biggest takeaway from the preseason?
Well, I've enjoyed the fact that Dennis Schroeder's here and brings such a new element to this team. The big question is, how will he play with Russell Westbrook? That's not a preseason answer. We don't know. But certainly he's had a lot of success with some of the other guys, Adams, Noel, Grant, Paul George. That's a very nice addition to this team and a good offensive spark that's going to be paying off all season long. Defensively, we'll see, still a work in progress. But I can see Dennis Schroeder having a big year for the Thunder.
All right, let's get back to Hamidou Diallo, because he's a guy that, I think the term during the draft was, nuclear athleticism, something like that. We've started to see some of that. Barry, what's your feeling about Diallo potentially making some sort of impact on this team?
Well, he fits the mold. I mean, the Thunder likes athletic, long, rangy guys, guys who can move laterally really quick and jump through the roof. We've seen him take Andre Robertson and try to do something with him, turned him into a quality NBA defender and a very valuable player. I think that's sort of what they see in Diallo. So the injuries have sort of given him an in. A whole lot of this league is, if you're not Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, a whole lot of this league is just fortune and opportunity. Diallo gets here, Robertson has a setback, Terrence Ferguson gets a concussion. All of a sudden, Diallo is a guy that is getting to play quite a few preseason minutes, may get to play regular season minutes. He may start on the same floor with Durant and Steph Curry on Tuesday night. So when you get a chance, take it, and it appears that he's showing signs of, hey, I belong in this league.
Eric, how surprising is that? I mean, as Barry said, circumstances have led us to this, that Hamidou Diallo could potentially be a starter in the season opener, but I mean, still on the scale of surprise, where does that rank for you?
It's mildly surprising, but also Billy Donovan rewarded Terrence Ferguson because of some of the attrition around him. Alex Abrinas got hurt. Abdel Nader, we haven't seen any of him because he's had left knee soreness all camp. Basically, Billy Donovan justified starting Terrence Ferguson because not only he performed well in camp, but because some of the other guys around him were injured. Now Terrence Ferguson's injured, so Hamidou Diallo, who's performed well in camp, naturally elevates to that position. More surprising to me is that he's shown the acumen he has for the game at a guy who was picked at 45th overall in the draft. When you look at it that way, there's really no reason he should have fallen that far in the draft. There were questions about his shot going into this past draft. The Thunder got a steal. Brooklyn originally picked him. They bought him from Brooklyn for some cash and a second rounder in the future. he's really a guy who was a fringe lottery pick, probably should have been picked in the lottery just based on his athleticism alone.
Yeah.
He's ahead of where Terrence Ferguson was at this point last season physically and in terms of just picking up the little nuances of the game, particularly on defense.
Yeah, rare that a guy would be picked that late in the draft and potentially have a chance to make an impact this quickly, but that's where the Thunder is with that position and injuries and that sort of thing. Eric, you had a story earlier this week about Deonte Burton, another guy that, not one of those star guys, but a guy that has made some headway in the preseason. What's your feeling about him and how he might fit a piece in this puzzle?
He fits the mold of the Thunder players being interchangeable. They like guys who can play multiple positions, and Burton can do that. He can guard, pretty much every position on the floor, even centers. But he's a unique body type at 6'5", 250. I just don't think he's going to be a guy who plays for the Thunder a ton, but he's a fascinating story. He's a guy who came from Milwaukee. He's battled depression throughout his life. His mom passed away 4 years ago, and since then, he's really tried his best to get his career going and reignite his career. He transferred from Marquette to Iowa State. He went to Korea, played there, thrived in Korea, came back, and was a star for the Thunder on their summer league team this season. Now he's carried it over to preseason. Had that impressive performance for the Thunder against Milwaukee in the preseason finale. I think that'll carry over to the Blue. He'll be a very strong player for the Blue. He's a two-way player. He can spend some time with the Thunder this season, up to 45 days. I don't think he factors too much into the Thunder's rotation necessarily, particularly when Ferguson comes back and they have so many wings to choose from. But he's another one of those guys that the Thunder is going to give every opportunity to land, if not with the Thunder, try and make his mark with some NBA team because they like his character, they like that he can play multiple positions, and he's just explosive and fun to watch. He's just a guy who just jumps off the screen because you're not used to seeing a guy who's the size of an outside linebacker go up and catch alley-oops the way he does. He's been a really fun story to follow in training camp.
Well, and he's one of those guys, whether we're talking about Burton or Diallo, that, very early in the season with the injuries that the Thunder has a situation. We'll talk about Russell Westbrook here in just a second, but the rotation early and the guys that could be playing. I mean, we know that Billy Donovan has in his track record, that he'll throw guys in there to see how they play for a while, and obviously with these injuries, he's going to have to do that. But the rotation early, it's going to be really interesting. What's your best guess of how many guys we could see early in rotation, who some of those guys are, how they fit in? Are you starting to get a clear picture or a clearer picture of that?
Well, yes, because of the injuries. Now, if the injuries some of these guys get healthy, or we don't know what their status is, then it gets murkier. But he's going to end up playing 10 or 11 guys. But some of those guys aren't healthy right now. And so a guy like Diallo comes through. TLC might get, he's not, he's sort of taking a step back in my mind in terms of the depth chart in this preseason, but he's a guy that could get back into the flow of things. So, is Abrina's healthy? Starting to look like it, but we'll see. When does Terrence Ferguson come back? When is Westbrook back in the fold? And then eventually Andre Robertson. Those are a lot of questions that Billy has, but Billy will play young guys. Now, he doesn't play them all the time. You can get in his doghouse for a couple of weeks, but you always get out of it. So I think you'll see, let's say by December 1st, I think you'll have seen, 12 or 13 Thunder guys play significant times in games. They may go 4 or 5 games without playing, but I think you'll have an idea of who can do what here in the first month or so of the season.
Eric, what's your best guess on starters and, just who might see significant time, say, in these first few regular season games?
I think it depends on Westbrook, and I guess we'll probably talk about him shortly. But
go ahead if you want to.
It just depends on when Westbrook comes back. You've got 4 guys, if you're not including Westbrook, that are definites in Paul George, Steven Adams, Patrick Patterson, and Dennis Schroeder as your starters. Billy Donovan likes Jeremy Grant coming off that bench role. He likes that comfort that he can bring him off the bench, and he'd be a little bit of a scoring punch and a guy that can get the line off the bench. Raymond Felton's entrenched at that backup spot. The real question is shooting guard, and I think that Hamidou Diallo's probably lining up to be the starter opening night next week against Golden State. The concussion protocol is a tricky thing. We don't know when Terrence Ferguson is going to be available and how many days of practice he's going to have under his belt before he can get back into play. He suffered a concussion earlier in the week on a Sunday. He was placed in the concussion protocol on a Monday, and the Thunder, as of now, has about 4 days of practice between now and Golden State on Tuesday. So depending on what his progress is, he could be inserted back into the starting lineup. Either way, when Russell Westbrook comes back, you're going to see a ton of Russell Westbrook and Dennis Schroeder playing together. Those guys have to get on the floor together. Schroeder's one of the Thunder's 4 or 5 best players. It just only helps the Thunder for those guys to maximize how much offense they can put on the floor, putting Russell Westbrook and Schroeder together. That's always going to be the challenge. How those guys play together, can they create enough spacing on the floor to where the Thunder's offense isn't bogged down and teams aren't clogging the paint on the Thunder like they've done the past 2 seasons without Kevin Durant. So Diallo, I'd just go out on a limb and say he's going to be the starter because Ferguson's going to have missed some practice time this week. But going forward, once Ferguson gets healthy, it'll be a battle between those two until Andre Robertson can come back into the fold.
Barry, let's say Westbrook is available for the opener. Who are the guys that are in that second unit that you're curious to see? I mean, we obviously don't know exactly who Billy Donovan will put out there against the Warriors. They're such a unique challenge. But of that sort of next wave of guys, who are you curious to see in Thunder Blue?
Well, I'm anxious to see Westbrook start because that way the rotation sort of takes shape, and I love the second unit's potential. When you got a guy like Schroeder playing with Nerlens Noel and Jeremy Grant, guys that can run the floor and fly through the air, and then you also got a sharpshooter like Alex Abrinas, who on a lot of teams would sort of move up to the starting role when somebody like Andre Robertson went out. This team needs some three-point shooting with that second team, so he's going to stay back there. But that's a really interesting second unit to me. With Schroeder, last year Raymond Felton did a wonderful job running the second unit, and he's back again. But he's not a greyhound that can get up and down like those guys. Noel can do it. Grant can do it. With Schroeder running the point, I think they can get a lot of easy buckets. And then you got the shooter. Like I said, with Abrinas. So I like the potential of that second unit. That's what I'm really looking forward to seeing.
Eric, I just inserted Russell Westbrook into the opening night starting lineup. So
you and 4 million other Oklahomans.
But is it going to happen? I mean, what's your sense of where Westbrook is on this recovery?
Me personally, I think he's going to play.
Is that because of where he is with the recovery or the opponent?
It's hunch. It's, I think, where he is in his recovery. Now, we haven't received an official update. He has not been in contact as far as we know. We'll figure that out sometime on Thursday, if anything. But Russell Westbrook, from what I can understand, has been ramping up. He's participating in some contact away from the scrimmage team setting, with coaches, assistant coaches, some of this kind of stuff that we've seen Andre Robertson go through in the first week or so of training camp before he had his setback. He looks fine just from the eyesight test. And then Russell Westbrook just doesn't like to miss games. I think at the most he'll miss the first week, which would be the Warriors and the Clippers, and then he'd come back for the home debut. I guess that would be on Sunday the 21st, maybe?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
My days are all scattered. But I think there's a strong possibility he could be ready for that Golden State game. Again, it might not be up to Russell Westbrook. It might be up to the doctors saying he needs a little bit more time, a little bit more practice time to get acclimated. They're going to have, at least 3 days in between Golden State and LA, so he could make his debut at LA once he has a little bit more time to get some practice in Los Angeles, where he's from. So he'd love to play there too. So I wouldn't be surprised if he played next week. I wouldn't be surprised if he played in the opener. It'll be perfect drama for the NBA. Have Russell Westbrook coming back, the Warriors getting their championship rings that night in Oakland. I'm sure Russell will be thrilled for that, and we'd be thrilled for it too. It'd make for some great drama. And if at the least, I don't think he's going to be out very long. Probably the first week of the season at the least, and at the most, he come back for the season opener.
Barry, put some chances on it. Put some percentages on it. Russell Westbrook playing on Tuesday night in the Bay, ring ceremony, Durant, Curry. Is Westbrook playing that night?
I think if there's any chance he can play, he will play. He'll have to. The only person who's going to be able to bench Russell Westbrook is number 0, Russell Westbrook. The medical staff is not going to go over and put a shoulder on Russell Westbrook and say, Russell, it's really not a good idea if you play. Billy Donovan's going to not walk over and say, Russell, let's just hold you out, get you ready for Friday night. That's not happening. If Russell thinks he can play, he's going to play. And a lot of people would say, hey, screw that game, the Warriors. I don't want to be around those guys. It's going to be a mess. Russell will think he can go in there and ruin their night, and maybe he can. So I'm with Eric. I think he will play. I don't know how effective he'll be, but he will be there, and I think ready to take up a sword and start the riot.
How pumped are you guys for this opener? This is one of 2 games on the 16th on Tuesday. The opening night, it'll be a more full slate the next night. So a real prime time, a real spotlight type of game for this, as you might imagine. Eric, you're going to be there. What's the level of excitement you're feeling and you're sensing from fans, the team itself? Where do things sort of stand right now?
I'm really excited from the standpoint that the Thunder's main players, the Paul Georges and the Steven Adams, have looked really good in limited minutes in preseason. Steven Adams has been a monster. He's been absolutely fantastic without playing more than 30 minutes in any of the games he played in. And I think he's just going to feast on Golden State and whatever they throw out at center, whether it's Kevon Looney or whoever they have there. I'm not even sure who they have anymore because Zaza's not there anymore. He's going to absolutely feast. They'd be wise to get him involved and get him touches as early as possible. I'm interested to see Jeremy Grant, who I think has a significant athletic advantage over anybody that the Golden State's going to be able to throw out in their second unit. The Thunder has some athletic advantages over Golden State, certainly. Now, Kevin Durant, nobody has an answer for Kevin Durant. But Paul George is a really close facsimile to Kevin Durant. I think he's going to play well. And if Russell Westbrook shows up, that's another guy that tips the scales in the Thunder's favor in terms of athleticism in the backcourt. How they defend, that's going to be the big question all season. But it's going to be a really exciting opening game, and I'm excited to see the guys we've seen play very well in preseason play 36, 35 minutes and see how deep that they can take Golden State and really put pressure on them, particularly Steven Adams and Paul George. Barry,
the NBA has not given us this matchup this early the last couple of years. We've waited. It's been a long wait. Last year it was November, I think, before these 2 teams got together. Maybe even a little later than that. Are you at all surprised that they did this as an opening night matchup, or was it just a matter of time before this was a matchup that got put front and center on that first night?
Oh, I'm not surprised. I mean, to me, it was clearly it's a game that America wants to see. It's great drama, great theater, great Shakespearean scripts. But it's unfortunate for me this year because the Thunder's not fully healthy yet. Andre and Westbrook. So if those guys were ready, play them anytime. Let's see what happens. You don't want to play the Warriors when you're shorthanded. So that's a little bit of the bummer in my book. We'll see how the Thunder reacts to it. But frankly, if you're setting out the perfect Thunder schedule this year, you got all the rum-dums before New Year's. You got all the tough teams after because that's when you got a chance to have Andre Robertson back.
Yeah. All right.
And Andre is built to play against the Warriors. He doesn't help you much against Atlanta or Brooklyn or somebody. He helps you against Golden State.
And the Rockets.
That's right.
Yeah. All right, guys. It all gets going on Tuesday night out in the Bay. Eric will be there, so be sure to get him on your follow list on Twitter and all other social media. We'll continue to have coverage of this regular season. Be sure to check out our Sunday special section on the Thunder in the Oklahoman and on News OK. And be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.